Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Willis here today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Barian O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. How are you?
Oh, living the dream. Just,
Is it
taking
is
Juneteenth. Yeah, taking
yeah? Is it?
Juneteenth off, working on my house. It's a good
All right. So
time.
look, I'm going to start right in by bashing conservatives. Conservatives are doing what the liberals do by running around and repeating the exact same thing that each other's saying, and it's filling up my feed on Twitter, and it's annoying the crap right out of me. I'm telling you right now, it. They're like, it's a made up holiday, and there's no reason to do it, and I'm like, there is a reason to do it. It's a reasonable federal holiday, and you guys look like liberals right now. Like, stop it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not look, I work today. We asked for special permission to work today. We're under a time crunch on the project I'm doing. But it of all the offensive things in the world to get upset over Juneteenth being a federal holiday, and then like there's an important piece of history to it.
Yeah.
You get to discuss a lot of things about how the government works when you talk about a day like Juneteenth. I don't. Conservatives
Exactly.
they got to get better. They got to get better at this stuff.
It's just they want to counter signal liberals and progressives. They like this thing. We're gonna say we hate this thing. Okay, it's people celebrating the end of slavery. It seems like a pretty good cause to celebrate.
I got zero problems with it. Sure. So LPNH, of course, our favorite shit poster on Twitter. It's like, well, libertarians would take away all federal holidays, just to start a real.
They also said anyone who celebrates Juneteenth should be deported from America.
Oh, did they? I didn't catch that one. Oh my God,
Yeah.
they're such idiots. Look, there's this. You're gonna really get mad at me right now, but there's this hilarious conundrum with Jeremy Kauffman. When you hear him talk, on Timcast and stuff like that, he presents a very reasonable bridge to conservative thinking. Whereas when he tweets and when he's behind, he wants to win the identity politics war, and I just don't understand the need for that. And I think it's also in bad taste. That part, I think, of his personality is in bad taste. I don't get it. It's not important.
Terrible. It's kind of ridiculous.
What as a speaker, he's compelling.
I mean, he has the cadence of a good speaker. That's
faint praise, brother. Faint praise.
Yeah. If you don't listen to the substance, it sounds like he's doing a good job.
Right. Fair enough. I'll accept your faint praise, and I will not push back on it. It's fine.
Yeah. No. So we should get this show because we're not going to talk about Juneteenth for the most part today. I'll probably say Happy Juneteenth sometime during the show too. But we're going to talk about the Trump income tax plan that he has. He's going to possibly. I mean, this isn't a thing he officially came out and said, but it was a hot rumor at the end of last week.
Yeah, I can't wait to steelman it, man. I'm all over it. I think it's a great idea. I am intrigued by it, and I certainly am going to present a couple of attempted positive narratives associated with it.
Yeah, sure.
Not that not that they're winning arguments.
It sounds exciting. We're going to eliminate the income tax, and replace it with another tax. But
sure.
Anyway, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the new draft rules, and we will talk about maybe some possible nuclear deregulation.
Yeah,
coming down the pipe.
Yeah. Maybe reopening a nuclear plant.
Yeah,
stuff. We got stuff.
Yeah, some stuff. We'll see if I don't think we're going to get to New York State budget stuff today, but if not, we'll do that next week.
We should mention how well some of the money they decided to spend is actually doing. They are doing a great job of shutting down unlicensed weed shops. They're doing a fantastic job. They're doing the Lord's work, Kevin. They're doing the Lord's work. That money is being effectively spent. And look, guys, they are paving potholes occasionally. I have noticed that.
Every once in a while. Sure it's not just dominoes again?
Well, no, I'm not sure of anything, to be honest with you, because potholes are, I don't know. They paved my entire road, which was originally an oil and stone kind of romanticized old country style road. And now it's official ugly, thick blacktop, just sucking in the heat and causing global warming.
Oh, man. Worse. All right. Well, we should get to the show. Let's go in 3, 2.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Barrier O'Connor.
I'm here, brother, and it's been too long. We skipped last week, unfortunately, due to a little bit of inconvenience on both of our parts. I'm glad to be back, and I am looking forward to this conversation. We've got some stuff.
Absolutely. We have quite a few things to talk about. We're going to talk about Trump's income tax plan. Again, not officially announced, but like we're going to talk about it anyway because it kind of got floated out there.
Yeah.
Some new rules related to the draft and some progress on nuclear energy stuff.
Yeah. So, Kevin, there's a vicious rumor going out there that I want to get out in front of and absolutely deny. I am not the libertarian that's going to be appointed to Trump's cabinet. But
you're not?
Most likely I'm not.
All right.
Yeah, most likely I'm not going to be that guy.
I don't know. You keep working it, man. Like I believe in you. Like,
well,
you're going to be an improvement over almost everyone else there.
Yeah, it's a vicious rumor. I want to set it aside right now.
Set aside. All right. Fair enough, man. Not going to be part of the cabinet. So like if when you're shilling for Trump on this show, it's you're just doing it for fun.
It's genuine. It's genuine. I'm loving his new tax plan idea. I love it.
It's new tax plan. All right, tell us what he might do.
So arguably, Kevin, what he floated as a little trial balloon to see if he could generate some interest and to make some noise. And there's should always be interesting discussions about how to fund the federal government. Trump's idea right now that he may do away with the income tax, which I like, and then fund the federal government wholly through tariffs on imported goods. Now, I'm intrigued, Kevin. I'm intrigued, right? Like consumption taxes intrigue me because we can opt out of them by altering our consumption. So that's would be my primary first point of interest. That I kind of like it,
So you're leaning towards liking it. Okay, fair enough. And I get
I'm trying to.
The first reaction I know a lot of folks have, particularly in the libertarian movement, someone's going to eliminate the income tax. We've talked about eliminating the income tax. Although when libertarians talk about it, they usually say, I would like to eliminate the income tax and replace it with nothing.
That's better.
So,
that's absolutely better.
It's usually how that conversation goes. Like, let's just eliminate that and replace it with nothing. Just repeal the whole amendment authorizing it if we can, but at best, just get rid of the income tax.
Yeah, I mean, so and here's why. Like, I want to explain why a consumption tax that adds an expense to foreign goods has some appeal to me. I think that there are ways around consuming foreign products where we could trade with each other if we weren't, again, regulated out of manufacturing in our company or country. Company might be right. But there's a component of it that simply intrigues me, that it would create some grassroots trading activity. A lot of things would interest me, but and I'm going to let you take the negative on it. Like, you are going to be able to smash this to pieces.
So we'll start with one thing, right? Like if we're going to replace the income tax with a tariff,
tariffs.
Yeah, with nothing. Okay, cool. Right. Because again, when libertarians say replace the income tax with nothing, they also mean and cut spending to make sure that we're not going into further debt because of it. Donald Trump has no intention of doing that. Like
that's true.
He's kind of like just kind of given up on the idea of like talking about reducing the debt. Like he paid lip service about how he was going to reduce the debt and like we were going to totally wipe out the deficit in 4 years or whatever. Like nonsense like when he was campaigning back in 2016. Doesn't even pretend to care about that anymore. Steve Bannon talked about how it was a good time to spend because interest rates were low, right? Like that's how he talked about things. And Steve Bannon was driving a lot of the ideology behind Trump's early years as president. They're not going to eliminate enough government to like make the tariff proposition work. Because right now, even if you put massive tariffs on goods, and we're talking like 50, 60, 100% tariffs on stuff, you probably still wouldn't replace all of the revenue the government makes from the income tax, right? Again, It's not justifying the taxation and the ideology behind it itself. It's just that you're not going to replace that revenue with a tariff alone. It's just not enough activity to replace all of the income taxes that we have right now. It tells you how much money we're extracting from the American people through income tax when you think about it. But like we're not going to replace that. Dude, like I really don't like consumption tax because what's going to happen is that you think in theory like, okay, maybe this will help some American companies, maybe you can just avoid paying for the foreign goods, but you really can't. Like so much of what you buy, some component of what you buy is made in another country. Made in Mexico, made in Canada, made in China, whatever. It doesn't matter if like it is American assembled, something like a car. Parts are made all over North America for cars. Parts of washing machines are made like in China and then shipped to the US and assembled in the United States for made in America products. The supply chain is truly global. And so it's going to be difficult to avoid all that stuff because if you had to develop the capacity here to produce all those things, it would be massively more expensive. It just would be.
That's just an opportunity for growth, Kevin.
People don't like.
Economy would grow.
They won't though. Like people are out doing their own thing right now. Like unemployment's pretty low. Like if there was an opportunity, if people wanted to get some of those jobs, like they could. Those manufacturing jobs are available. Like we have a ton of opportunity here, and we don't need to reshore that. Like it means that like we're able to buy more stuff, we're able to do more things because goods are cheaper. We're able to go like because like washing machines and TVs and food and all sorts of stuff are cheaper. That means that we have a little bit more money to do that. And again, I know inflation is a thing. I know like there are problems with the economy, but man, it could be worse. And one way to make it way worse is by slapping tariffs on everything, so all of our food and all of our stuff gets way more expensive, and it's going to disproportionately impact the working class and the middle class, like because like that is going to be a higher percentage of your income that is now going to be taxed in some ways because of like how people tend to consume things. Like a progressive income tax, like there are problems with it. I understand why people don't like it, but like to me, there are worse alternatives, and jacking up tariffs on everything is a worse alternative unless you can get like a very small tariff on things to like just pay for everything. Okay, cool. Like I could talk about that. I get it because that's how like originally the country did taxes. It wasn't income taxes.
Don't steal my thunder, bro. That was going to be my next.
Yes, I knew. Sorry, I cut you off. That's where you're going to go. But
the first 100 years of our existence, we basically funded the federal government with tariffs, like with tariffs on imported goods. We funded the federal government for decades that way, and then we added some excise taxes. Again, we get into this consumption tax issue, where we do find a workaround outside of the federal government. We have choices, and like, look, Kevin, it's weird. I've been focusing on especially food consumption and stuff like that. Just imagine 100% tariff on imported ultra processed food. I don't even know. I'm making stuff up right now.
Ultra processed. We're gonna go down that road.
Oh, we are. We will. Maybe not this show, but we'll go down this ultra processed food thing again because man, it's driving me crazy.
Listen, I know that. Have you heard about how they banned that ramen that was too spicy in Denmark? I want to be able to import that and eat it because this is America. Dang it! Like I can eat that stuff. And I don't want there to be a tariff on it. I don't want to have to pay twice as much for that ramen that was banned in Denmark. I'm just saying I should be able to eat it if I want to, unlike the Danes who think that their people are too weak for this. Pathetic.
Oh, they obviously are. I mean, you're on a pretty good roll there with me. Look, so again, it's tough for me to stay too strong in the steel man argument of tariffs, but any conversation about changing the way that we tax and fund the federal government, especially if I think there's ways around paying that tax that are completely legitimate, completely legal, and that would benefit interaction from neighbor to neighbor. I like that conversation. So that's what I'm hoping for. That's the piece of this
So
that I would like to steel man, but also I'm a libertarian. I like advancements in technology. I like the fact that we can buy cheap washing machines, cheap TVs, and honestly, like, look, Chinese technology as far as electric cars go, and look, guys, Biden is going to protect the auto laborers, the unions in America. Their cars are already being sold for half the price of American cars. They have more functionality. They're an amazing technological innovation, and we are going to miss out on that because we're already going to tariff our way out of that. You see what I mean? We're already going to
no,
make them
it's
impossible
ridiculous.
to
We're gonna,
buy here.
even though like the United States is right now, moving towards requiring electric vehicles, and New York State is explicitly doing that, but a lot of the domestic manufacturers just like aren't ready to deliver on that.
Correct.
Like, it's just in our grid isn't ready to deliver on that. We'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Also
But yeah, no, we should be able to do that. And I also love that I can buy like weird cheap stuff on like TikTok too that I know is like directly from like Alibaba in China. I bought like a boroscope for like $5. It's like a 15-foot boroscope. I'm like, hey, this is cool. I don't know what I'm gonna really use it for, but it's $5.
My
I
wife
could
got
probably use it today.
Yeah, my wife got purple sneakers off of Temu for like $6 plus like $3 in shipping, and they look kind of crazy cool. Like,
Yeah, why not?
it's there is
I'm not going to use any food products from some of that stuff, but like for me, like anything that's not going to go in my body or touch food, I'm fine with it.
Look, free trade, the freer the trade, the better. Capitalism and taking advantage of production advantages available, mineral resource advantages available, skill and technology available, specialization available from people who are better at things than we are, people who are more interested in these things than we are. These things have moved the entire world forward, lifted millions and millions of people out of poverty. I'm having a hard time sticking to steel manning the tariff idea, but I do want to focus on the piece of it, right? Where there is this opportunity for a consumption tax that in a way appeals to me.
So your thought is, okay, like if you want to pay less in taxes, just avoid the goods that are doing that. So I think, and I want to get to his comment in just a second too, to talk about like a different model too, because tariff, again, it's taxing goods that are coming in. We'll ignore the fact that we're probably going to get retaliatory tariffs and trade wars and things like that, but you could try to do that. I think you probably wouldn't know is the thing. Like you wouldn't realize that like a good is made with a component coming in from overseas. You would just see that like your stuff is more expensive. So I think that's what would happen with like increases in tariffs. This is what's happening now, honestly, with Trump's increases in tariffs and Biden's increases in tariffs. Stuff's getting more expensive, and you're like, it's not like a new tax, right? But like it is somewhere down the supply chain, like it's getting taxed because we've decided to tax lumber from Canada, and we've decided to tax steel from China. We've decided, like all these different things.
Right.
But there's another model. There's like things like value-added tax or other types of consumption taxes. Gene says Gary Johnson had planned to eliminate the income tax and replace it with a 10% use tax. I prefer to replace the income tax with nothing. So that's another kind of popular idea is doing something like a value-added tax where basically you just add like a small percentage to everything instead of taxing income, right? Even though how it ends up in practice, because this is how like a lot of Europe did it, is you end up with both the value-added tax and income tax. See, again, to me, like I don't really like it. It feels a bit regressive because that's a 10% tax on like everything, like food, goods, whatever. Like that ends up being a much bigger portion of income for people who are working class than people who are upper class. I mean, like, and we do have taxes on like luxury goods in a lot of places too, but like, so it's not just like, because people are like, oh, but it's only getting the people who are buying boats or something, right? Like, also not for nothing, I would like to buy a boat.
Yeah.
And I would like to be able to afford it one day.
Sure. That was John Stossel, if I recall correctly, did a big story exposing the problem with luxury taxes, right? To try to fund
Yeah.
major portions of the government. And he did a great job because he's like, okay, they added this tax. Now nobody's buying these boats from this shipyard in South Carolina anymore, and they're going overseas to get them. And
Yeah,
so
so
now
everyone
we
loses
have an
their
entire
job, and
town that's freaking dying because
yeah,
of a tax, like a luxury tax that was implemented based on jealousy and
it's just gonna tax the rich. You know, it's fine. They have enough. Nope. They're just like, oh, okay. You know what? Now it's cheaper to go buy it somewhere else.
the taxes went to zero.
Yeah.
Like the taxes collected on those ships went to zero, and it was a great thing for Stossel to capitalize on it. And that really reached me at a time in my life where my brain was still forming. So he also a great communicator of libertarian things. Let's not forget that consumption taxes do, especially in necessities, necessary goods, and really drastically impact the poor and the lower middle class and those on fixed incomes if they get attached to things that they feel they need to consume. Like it does. The lefties are on this now all of a sudden saying, hey, Trump's new tariff plan would punish the poor and the middle class, when in fact we've been saying that all along with all of their taxes and all of their regulations. And so now finally to pwn Donald Trump, they want to jump on the reality that taxation is theft, that they're punitive against the poor, those on fixed incomes, the middle class, especially the lower middle class. They now they want to jump on that stuff, Kevin. And I get that's why I get it. You know me, I get wound up over this stuff, man. It drives me nuts.
They just they need to be a bit more consistent, because things like raising sales tax in a state too, like it hurts people, right? Like it really does affect stuff, and I know, like, there's this idea, like, oh, well, like, you could go barter or something, go find a different way to do it. But like most people don't. It's great if you have like the time, the resources to know how to do that, but a lot of people don't. It's the thing.
Yeah, good point for sure.
So
Trump also did say, and this is a big shout out. This one is, I find interesting, has populist appeal. Like no taxes on tips. Tips are technically a gift. There really shouldn't be a tax on them.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of funny part about that is, like, tips are wildly underreported as income, just like massively underreported.
Kevin, I'm a former restaurant professional, and I just want to say I deny those accusations. Deny them.
No way you or your employees would ever fail to report their tips.
Yeah, I'm shocked, sir. Shocked.
Yeah. So I mean, but I think it's a good thing. Again, tips, like workers who rely on tips, like most of them tend to kind of be like in working class folks. My mom worked as a waitress for decades, and like having the government steal what little she made stinks. It's terrible. Like I don't know.
I stand up for your mom. I am sure that she was honest and fair in her reporting. And look, we've got to this point where like they can't even restaurants have now become an enforcement arm of the IRS, whereby what credit card tips get doled out goes on the employee's tax statement at the end of the week. Yeah. And so they can't even under report anymore, man. It's awful.
Yeah.
But and look, the new IRS agents have to make money somewhere. That's a market for them to make money. A real market for them to increase tax revenues is to go after waiters and waitresses and bartenders.
Way to do it. That's what all that money was for. It wasn't go after the rich.
No. Like honestly, it was just to find enforcement mechanisms to help restaurants make sure that the bottom line money going out to waiters and waitresses there's a lot of money there. Probably. I mean, other restaurants that I didn't run probably underreported on tips.
Probably. Yeah. All right, so we're about out of time for this segment. There's a few comments that I'm gonna have to get to during the break. So if you're listening on WYSL, go find our podcast. You want to hear what we're talking about during the break? You want to hear Tim's thoughts on Juneteenth?
Yeah, let's do that.
That's what we're talking about before the show. So you got to hear that. Happy Juneteenth, folks. We'll be back here in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. All right. I'm going to get to a couple more of these comments.
Yeah, there's some good ones out there.
Wouldn't there need to be an amendment passed through Congress and ratified by 2/3 of the states to repeal the income tax? Yeah, you'd have to go through the normal constitutional amendment process to appeal an amendment to the Constitution, because an amendment to the Constitution is basically saying this is the Constitution now. So you want to change it, just like you had to have the 18th and the 21st Amendments, prohibition on alcohol, repeal of prohibition on alcohol.
Yeah. And that would be fun. That would be a fun everyday debate that I think there would be some sort of broad-based agreement if what was to replace the income tax was nothing or something very simple that people were like, like, look, if they pass all of the tax burden onto corporations, let's say, that's still actually going to cost the middle class and the poor, right? Those costs still get passed along. It's
they're just okay. You raise corporate taxes. Guess what? They're just going to pass along that cost to you. That's what's going to happen. To me, corporate taxes aren't great. I'd prefer those to be zero. Like, legitimately, I'd rather corporations reinvest in, their own companies, hire more workers, do their stuff. Okay, great. And then if CEOs are taking home massive salaries, then that's covered by the income tax. Right?
Kevin, that sounds like supply side economics. And I just want to say that I was always a big fan of supply side economics. And I know that drives people crazy. But if we're here producing, there would be a legitimate competitive market for labor. There would be legitimate replacement budgeting for their materials, for their buildings. They would be able to do so much more instead of waiting until the government incentivizes them to do things like build a new factory, right? Because we've made that so expensive. It would be a better way. It needs a like fuzzy bunny supply side reinvestment act of 2024. If Tim gets to be the libertarian in Trump's cabinet, that's how I'm going to name things, guys.
Come up with a clever acronym, man. Congress loves acronyms.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. But again, it comes down to don't tax something you want more of. You want more business growth? Don't tax that. Like,
yeah, our buddy Joe. Yeah, that's right. You get what you incentivize, you lose what you disincentivize. Our buddy Joe, who hasn't been here in a while, says if Donald Trump was in prison, I would still vote for him. Joe, what I wanted to say and why I love your comment is if Donald Trump is in prison, it actually drastically increases the likelihood that I will, in fact, vote for him. I just want to be honest about it out there, people. Like, if he's in prison, I'm probably going to vote for him.
Is it because he'll have street cred? Is that it, Tim?
Well, that and any kind of middle finger I can give to the system, Kevin, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? I want to be honest. Like, I just want to be honest. That's it. I'm here to be honest, and that's why Trump should consider me for his cabinet, even though those rumors about me being the libertarian in his cabinet
are not true. But if they were true, I might say yes.
Yeah, but I would definitely say yes. This would be awesome. We'd still do the podcast from like, I don't know, some basement room in the White House. It would be wild.
Yeah, it's great. I bet they have good internet there.
Yeah, they would make sure, because I'd just be saying, I'd be the Trumpian libertarian. It would be wild. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I could definitely get away with saying even crazier stuff than I do now.
Probably. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how long they keep you around. You can't possibly say like crazier things than Donald Trump. So like,
the bar would be so high on crazy.
It'd be high. Like, I mean, like you could, but like, there's a lot of space there to run.
I got a lot of room to work, brother. That's for sure. You know?
100%. So,
well, guys,
Joe's going on to like invoke the 25th. Yeah, no, Joe Biden, he doesn't look great.
I think we'll make fun of him after in the after show, because there are legitimate observations going around, and there's legitimate like propagandists trying to defend it, and it's like, guys, like I don't know, you're so obviously propagandists. It's driving me nuts.
Yeah, no, it's not great. All right, let's go back in like 5 seconds. 3, 2. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. I'm still here. I've been kind of traveling all over. I've been in Massachusetts a little bit. I got a little opportunity to work with my son. I got to hang out in Boston. Did I mention this already? I don't know. Because I want the WYSL audience to know that I'm like a worldly, sophisticated, that's it. I'm worldly and sophisticated, and I've been traveling around the country a little bit, doing some jobs.
All over. Go and see Boston and explore some of America's revolutionary history.
I went down to the Boston Harbor where they threw the tea in. I did go to the on a bit more of a somber note where the Boston Massacre occurred. That Boston courthouse there, or state house, is still townhouse, whatever it is. You know what I mean? The official the official building is still standing. They have a nice little monument there. And sure, we got rid of the British, so their opinions don't count on anything. Remember that when you're talking to British people on Facebook or Twitter. Boom. July 4th is coming, baby.
That's right. No, we plan to be obnoxious. I think 4th of July. We'll do something fun. But even though, so this is slightly related to the last segment. Did you see the Prime Minister tweeting about how we've got to stop? We've got to start buying food only from Britain. Like, don't buy foreign food.
Yeah, good luck with that.
That's kind of what they're known for. They're kind of known for their food stinking so bad that they had to go and raid the rest of the world for spice. That's
honestly, I'm Irish. They literally stole our potatoes and starved our children, and somehow we managed to survive through the miracles of Catholicism and
ridiculous.
Whatever.
There was almost a revolution in Britain because they wanted to import American corn, and they're like, we can't grow this here all that well. Just let us buy American corn. And they're like, no, you have to buy. We're going to protect the farmers. No, it's ridiculous. We don't. This is why we don't copy their ideas. They're bad ideas. Donald Trump's trying to copy these ideas. Jokers, just jokers all the way through. Anyway, that's not what we intended to talk about this segment. We can save the British bashing for closer to 4th of July.
I can't wait, brother. I can't wait.
And so we want to talk about the draft, actually. So because there is some news on that, which is that the latest version of the National Defense Authorization Act, which passed clearly in the House 217 to 199, and passed in the Senate as well, would now automatically register people for the selective service. So everyone 18 to 26 is now going to be registered. Currently, prior to this law, if it's kind of a choice to register for the draft.
Kind of a choice.
Kind of a choice. There are people who don't do it. Reasons Matt Welch didn't register for the draft, but there are consequences to that. There are certain jobs you can't get. You can't work for the government. You can't get student loans. You can't participate in a lot of different federal assistance programs. There's consequences to not registering for the draft. So there's a strong incentive to register for the draft. And I ended up doing it because I was like, one, I wasn't libertarian at the time. I didn't think about it. I was like, oh, this is just a thing I have to do to get student loans. Okay, I guess this is a thing I do.
There was no philosophical thought other than a slight annoyance at the government when I signed up to register for the selective service. Okay, but I want my children to give it a little bit more thought, especially my son. But the reality is he wants to go to college. He's going to be taking out loans. He cannot not register for the selective service. And that's an absolute reality. So, guys, I do want to read something that I found slightly chilling, being that I am very anti-war. I'm strongly opposed to military conflict. So I went to the selective service system from the .gov website, and it's I want to be clear what they're saying here. Okay, it's your country. Take 1 minute to protect it. When you register with the selective service, you're helping ensure a secure future for your community and the United States of America. While there is currently no draft, registration with the selective service system is the most publicly visible program during peacetime that ensures operational readiness in a fair and equitable manner, and I hate the word equitable, if authorized by the president and Congress, our agency would rapidly provide personnel to the Department of Defense while at the same time, and guys, this is important actually, while at the same time providing an alternative service program for conscientious objectors. Federal law requires nearly all male U.S. citizens and male immigrants 18 through 25 to register with selective service. And they're talking about war. And Kevin, when I think people are a little bit outraged, but then when we combine this with what we see going on and Joe Biden and by executive fiat signing a pledge to support Ukraine for at least the next 10 years, I think people have a legitimate concern. I'm legitimately concerned. There's things that look like we're gearing up for action,
Yeah. Right. And I'm like, yeah, if you're hoping for some comfort that like the government isn't worried about an escalation for war, saying now actually everyone is automatically registered for the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not very comforting. And again, Alice on Facebook said do not comply. Okay, like the option to not comply with registering for the selective service, which you can do, there's consequences to that, but you can do, is no longer on the table. Like you're just in it now. If there is ever a draft, which we haven't had a draft for a long time, not since the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And thanks in part to people like Milton Friedman who advocated for moving the military to an all volunteer military, and ending the draft. It's one of his greatest achievements. We haven't had one in a while, but we still could have one again. People 18 to 26. So I'm out of that zone now, but there's my cousins are in that age group. I have friends and family who are still in that age group. Yeah, I don't want to see them drafting. In terms of not complying, like, okay, yeah, you could not show up if your number is called, but again, there are consequences to that, like going to jail, consequences to that.
Big time consequences, absolutely. And that to me, look, conscription is slavery. I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
I don't like our pro-war stance. You know who else, Kevin? Check this out. You know who else?
Actually, no, I okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, another famous economist was relatively anti-war, and John Maynard Keynes was relatively anti-war. He was a big proponent of communist-style modern monetary theory, but he was like, we could spend this on public works programs. We don't have to use it to blow up bombs and people in foreign countries. Like, I'm extrapolating, but his own words say he was not pro-war. He was not pro-modern monetary theory the way that we do it now by rewarding representatives to support military aggression with military contracts to their home constituents. Like even he, the greatest modern monetary theorist of all time, right, was anti-war. So what are we doing now?
Yeah. No, I like 100%. Like, yeah, you got people across the political spectrum who take principled and consequentialist stances and stances based on like the numbers too of like the economic numbers. But you kind of threw something out there like a little bit casually, like talking about like the draft being slavery, right? Like, which we know sometimes like libertarians do, they'll say like taxation is slavery, but I think that is worth dwelling on. I think it's worth like spelling out specifically, like, because I would say the same thing. I would say like the draft is literally slavery. It is not the same thing as chattel slavery. It's not inheritable.
Right.
However, if you are compelled under threat of violence and imprisonment to go and put your body on the line to fight and die for someone else, and you will be jailed or harmed if you don't do this, that is a version of slavery. And it doesn't matter if you're getting compensated for that.
Correct.
Like, you can be compensated and it's still a version of slavery. Like, you own your body. And if you don't want to commit violence on behalf of anyone else, any government, any individual, and you're being forced under threat to do that, that is slavery. And it is worth opposing the draft in all instances, specifically because of that. It is one of the most immoral things that a government can do.
all I can say is amen, brother. Like you're the guy that pulls me back off the ledge. I'm glad to see you go up to the ledge and leap right over it, because it is. I'm even concerned with the propaganda that's used to propaganda young men into believing that when they go over to foreign theaters of war, that they are doing a great service to this country. I am not sold on that. I'm unpersuadable on that. That there would be a better way than what we do now.
Yeah, no, it's not in every instance. That's for sure. Again, I think like in all volunteer military, like it's again, if you want to choose to do that, and there's some like susceptibility to propaganda type of thing, and again, just because you sign up, once you're in it, you don't get to pick and choose what you do, right? You might think that you're going to serve a noble cause, and could get mixed up in some pretty awful stuff. But I think in all volunteer military is more moral. If there's a conflict that is worth fighting, you, the government, need to make the case that is a conflict worth fighting and having people sign up for. And in a lot of ways, it makes the military more effective. Again, you have people who have chosen to be there. They've decided that is a cause worth being there for. They weren't forced under threat of violence and imprisonment to be in a situation, because that's how you end up with situations where you have dozens of people out in Vietnam who absolutely do not want to be there under any circumstances. They're just trying to survive. It doesn't make for an effective military, and again, there's situations where like people will point to World War II as that, but there's a lot of people who like recognize the legitimacy of that cause and probably would have signed up anyway. Like that was a lot of what World War II was. But I don't know. Again, I will always oppose the draft. I absolutely oppose any even expansions of that. Like, oh well, like we should have the draft even in peacetime and just like have people do a couple years of service and like whatever. I'm like, nope, still not that. That's still slavery. I'm again like, oh cool, like you're building trails or whatever, but like nope, still slavery. That's still what it is. If I don't want to do that, I should not have to do that. Recruit people voluntarily.
Our friend Gene out there in Facebook land brings up a good point, and I appreciate the opportunity to offer a huge distinction. That while I think that we could do things better in the world, I have the utmost respect for the men and women that serve our country in the military. It is for me, I can see a million miles in between the issue where people are volunteering to serve their country under the guise of what is offered as protecting their communities, protecting their friends, protecting their neighbors. I respect them. I appreciate their service, and I value it. I want the system to be different. I still respect the people that put their lives on the line for me to be able to run my mouth on a show like this. Like it's absolutely 100% different. So thank your sons for me. All of you who have military professionals in your family. I have some in my family. It's a big deal. I appreciate their service. It's an entirely separate issue. I honor the troops 100% unequivocally.
Yeah, no, I get it. Again, my dad served for 20 years in the Navy. I grew up like literally being able to see a military base from my backyard, like literally, like I could look over the fence and there's one of the entrances. So like I get it, right? And that's the people who are serving and doing well and doing good work in the U.S. military, like that's awesome. I still don't agree with the draft. I don't think you should be forced to do it. That's
absolutely, brother. Absolutely. I'm with you. I think our friends are probably with us. I think that a lot of people do find value in serving in the military. I know my son was certainly considering it as an option. I was reluctant to give my blessing to that, of course, but and look, if they come here, guys, I'm hunkered down with the kids. I'll go. Like if they do come here, if they want to attack us here, I think it would be a disaster. I think they know better, but there's legitimate rights to self-defense. There's legitimate rights. Like if you're being attacked by another government and its agents, you have the right to take care of that, period. So, no,
it's a good way to end that. All All right, we'll head to break. No, we're out of time. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, that segment seemed to fly. It must have been very emotionally charged. I was kind of lost track of time, Wow.
Man, you made a great argument there at the end for Ukraine and why we should support them.
How so?
They're defending their homeland in the same way that we would do the same.
Sure, fine. Don't send our kids.
Different than us sending them weapons.
Yeah, that is different. And if we weren't broke, if it meant something, if we were making real choices about, hey, we need to fund Ukraine, but arguably what we're doing is funding NATO aggression, which feels uncomfortable to say because I know NATO is a defensive alliance and had real value in the world.
NATO aggression in Ukraine.
Yeah, expansion. Sure,
expansion.
NATO expansion, and if we add Ukraine to NATO, that's NATO expansion, right? By definition. What's that?
They're not. They're just saying. I don't know. I think NATO would prefer to not fight in any of their own countries because then stuff's going to get way escalated. So they're just like, we'll just send a bunch of resources over to Ukraine where the Russians already are to reduce Russia's capacity to
right. I'm uncomfortable with what I see happening. I feel like, and we'll send American kids there. When we got
it hasn't gotten to that yet,
right? But to me, there's a certain amount of escalation going on when, in fact, I feel like there would be a way to negotiate a way out of this. So
I don't know. We'll have to agree to disagree on that one because
I think
I don't want to spend we've hashed this out before and out.
Yeah,
I want to spend a show on that one again.
Yeah. I'm not unamenable to your position. I'm not. It's just governments are the ones fighting wars. It's people are getting pulled off the streets in Ukraine. They've lost a lot of people. They've lost a lot of infrastructure. I feel as though there was a way to stop it sooner.
Well, I mean, the Russians said they could have stopped it sooner with full surrender and take over by the Russian government. That certainly is an option. But a lot of Ukrainians looked at what happened to other countries Russia did that to and decided that that was the worst alternative and that they would fight instead.
I think that's fair, and that's a good point to make. I don't have any arguments with that point. I have arguments with governments and wars, and so that limits my ability to argue in this realm. But it also allows me firm footing on saying I want this war to be over.
All right, fair enough. Well, yeah. All right, so we are going to get to some other stuff too. I think we covered the draft thing. And we're going to talk about nuclear power in a minute.
Kind of a hopeful subject for us, really, right?
Yeah, no, like it's something kind of good happening. It's a rare thing, and so yeah, we're going to talk through maybe the government doing something right and making some progress on an issue. There's hope for this republic yet, Tim.
There is.
We can do the right thing occasionally. Okay, let's go back now. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, and as probably everybody in the WSL audience knows, and as the people out in our Facebook, YouTube, Spotify world know, I'm a big proponent of alternate sources of energy, so much so that I work in an alternative energy field, providing interesting alternatives to generation of electrical power. Electrical power has all of the potential in the world to solve all of our problems, where everybody can come to an agreement that we're doing the least amount of damage and offering the world the opportunity to progress. So on that note, I've always felt nuclear power has gotten a short shrift, that we're irrationally afraid of it. that that Germany closed a bunch of nuclear power plants and then had to burn coal to keep themselves warm in the winter. It was absurd. And so now you and I are about to talk about some positive news on that front in the United States of America. Am I right about that?
Yeah. No, so there is some positive news on that. So the House of Representatives voted 465 to 36, and the Senate voted 88 to 2, with only Bernie Sanders and Ed Markey, Massachusetts, voting. Like it's pretty rare that like Congress like votes so overwhelmingly for anything.
Yep.
So they passed it. It's called the
Bipartisanship.
Advanced. Yeah.
Weird.
Coming around, but it's called the Advance Act because in advance is an acronym. Of course, I don't remember what it stands for. But basically it does a couple things where it tries to like it's tasking the Nuclear Regulatory Commission with reworking its mission to try to specifically be about promoting the benefits of nuclear energy and not only focusing on safety, right? Like safety is still going to be a component, but right now they've gone so far in the direction of being overly cautious that nuclear power becomes unviable, where you have very, very few nuclear power plants getting built. There's that one that opened in Georgia recently. But other than that, just like nothing else in the pipeline, there's nothing else coming because it's way, way too expensive. Like that plant costs like something like $30 billion. Is absolutely ridiculous. And so what the Biden administration, Republicans, Democrats, they've all kind of recognized this problem and said, okay, nuclear energy is, when it's not regulated to death, relatively cost effective. Other countries are doing cost effective power generation. It's low carbon. It's sustainable. It's a thing that like people have overemphasized and misunderstood how like waste is treated with this, how the actual danger of nuclear power plants. So they made this bill. They're gonna try to reduce regulations on nuclear power, and they're gonna throw a bunch of money at it too, and they're gonna try to promote like fourth generation Gen 4 nuclear reactors too, so like newer generations that use like molten salts and things like that.
That's
So
thorium salt reactors, correct? You just load. I think Gen 4 is thorium salt fusion based stuff. Am I right about that?
well, it's not fusion. It's still fission.
Okay.
It's just that they allow those types of reactors can kind of use up more of the fissile material and then kind of recycle like old waste. And then it's like they have the molten I didn't think it was thorium. I thought it was like molten like sodium or something. And now I'm doubting myself on that. But yeah, so like they're also like incentivizing like the use of like nuclear power to do things like use the waste heat more effectively, to find other uses for that. So like some towns that use the waste heat that can't be used to generate steam for power generation still do things like, you know, melt road ice and things like that for it. Because that is another actual concern, is like, how do you dissipate waste heat that can't be used for steam? Do you just put it into a heat sink like Lake Ontario, which is what like a lot of the ones around here do, or can you use something else with it? So there's all these incentives to try to do that. So Tim, I've been talking for a while. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, believe it or not, for a while in my adult life, I got obsessed with the concept of using all of the heat that we generate more effectively and more efficiently. So much so that I wanted to like invest in soapstone electric heat storage units that would use electric in the off hours and put it into my house during the on hours. That I had crafted up a plan. This is kind of weird because I had an old backhoe and I'm like, all right, I could dig a big hole, I could burn waste wood, and I could heat that water up, and I could probably use it through January to heat a building. You know what I mean? So I had all of these ideas. And so any idea where we more efficiently attack excess externalities of nuclear power would be amazing. But let's for now stay on the fact that nuclear power has been generally proven safe. There have been some major accidents that disasterize an area, but we haven't had those kind of things happen here. That there is a fear that I feel is a bit irrational about nuclear power. We could take a look at what happened in Germany, where they closed nuclear power plants and then had to go back to burning coal to keep their houses warm.
Yeah.
I think that the time has come to kind of face the fact that nuclear power works.
It's funny. I was in Berlin when like that like really started kicking off, because I was a student at the time and I was like studying abroad, and that was when the Fukushima disaster happened.
Correct.
And like all around like Brandenburger Tor, people had like the nuclear Nine Danke signs, or Atomkraft. But and like just people went bananas over there for it. Like the Greens, like just that was like their moment. And like the environmentalists got so freaked out about the idea that like something could possibly go wrong with nuclear, and it's scarier than when a coal plant or an oil burning plant goes wrong, that like they decided to make it that their whole thing. And just the failure to understand the actual dangers involved with nuclear disasters, where Fukushima, like basically no one died from that. Like actually the people who died from that died because of like the evacuation that like might not have actually been necessary.
Right.
People got like, you know, like there's definitely a chance of like radiation poisoning when they're trying to figure stuff out, but like it ended up mostly being fine. And then situations like Chernobyl were like really specific to a special brand of Soviet incompetence.
I love it. That's true though. Like that's an accurate assessment. Like was it they didn't want to shut the plant down, so they let it cook too long, and that's why it melted down. Like they could have shut it down up to a certain point. They saw it was behaving badly, but they're like,
yeah, they wanted to complete the tests, and then they didn't want to, like, once they knew stuff was going bad too, they didn't want to look bad. So yeah, like that's it was a matter of like, okay, once they could have shut things down, and yeah, they will look dumb, and like, which in the Soviet system has like real consequences, right? But
sure, absolutely.
You know, but and then they could have like warned the surrounding area much sooner, but they didn't do it because, again, you know, Soviet specific circumstances. And then they're using a type of reactor that like was never used in Western countries and isn't used today. And there are better ways to like make sure that nuclear power is done safely. It's still complicated, but like there are lots of ways to do it safely, and lots of safety mechanisms and checks. And even things like 3 Mile Island, like it really wasn't like the whole situation ended up emerging out of an abundance of caution, and like no one actually got exposed to really any radiation from that.
But they made movies about it. They made fear mongering about it. They take things that sell. And again, our friend Gene out there in Facebook land brings up the fact that I want to say 60, 70 years now, we've been using nuclear powered submarines to guard the waters of the world. Like it's been dudes are like living in the same ship as a nuclear power plant.
Well, this is something my dad did. He worked on engines on a nuclear submarine.
Okay,
as a veteran, that's what he did. So I will say this though, because someone corrected me on nuclear submarines. What they use, and the reason why we don't have this on like commercial ships, is they use a highly enriched form of uranium, I guess, which is kind of the same material that you would need for nuclear weapons.
Right.
So the U.S. government and other governments are like, we don't really want this type of material around, and that's why commercial shipping vessels don't have nuclear power. Now, there are efforts to try to make like a level of lower enriched uranium product work on commercial vessels that wouldn't provide a nuclear proliferation risk.
Right.
But it's not quite there yet, because just that when you have a highly enriched product, you can make a much smaller reactor. it would be too big to be commercially viable on commercial vessels right now, even though those ships are getting so big. Like at some point, like I feel like you're just gonna like it's gonna equal out, and you're gonna be able to build a ship big enough where you can have a nuclear reactor on board.
Libertarian paradise, brother. We're always trying to move out into the ocean, into international waters, and to just the right ship. That is it. It's going to take us to the next level.
Yeah. It might, why not? Like I believe that is a thing worth pursuing, and we should do it. I'm excited for someone to figure it out.
Yeah, I picture one of the imaginations that run through my mind is like a truck mounted nuclear power generator generating electric where you can take it out into the middle of nowhere and practically build a town off of that, and just have power anywhere. Like I, I listened to a guy who was talking about Gen 4 nuclear reactors, and it the potential for limitless power in your own backyard or on a truck. We should be doing it. And
Yeah,
yet here we are.
getting there. I mean, like, so this is again, so this is going to make the Advance Act is going to make some things a little bit easier. Hopefully, because a lot of it is support for kind of the newer stuff, and it's molten salt reactors. I was thinking salt sodium. It's not necessarily the same thing, but there's support for that, and hopefully there'll be some support for like the small modular reactors too. That'll be they're showing some promise too. There's great ways of being able to deliver effective commercial power in a smaller package that is anticipated for things like space exploration and things like that, and may one day be commercially viable, and may one day be down to the level of like you're probably not gonna like throw it in the back of a pickup truck, like at least not anytime soon, but like
right,
something where you're gonna have like you're going to be able to transport it over the road effectively and be able to generate power in different circumstances and have it be more portable and effective.
Well, honestly, limitless power and our ability to harness oil, those are the things that have brought us to where we're at right now, where you and I are talking. We're approximately 250 miles apart, having a conversation with our friends on the internet, exploring futuristic probabilities, possibilities for the world. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think that irrational fear has all too often limited our future. It's limited our reality. Everything from eat the rich to communism attacks things where individuals can be empowered to produce for themselves and to live comfortable lives. And it drives me crazy.
And I was thinking about that today too, like that, like those type of people, like the degrowth people, like, man, I want to be able to go in my house. I want everyone to be able to go and blast their ACs tonight because it is a million dang degrees in Rochester,
Right.
and not even think about like, oh my goodness, is this bad for the earth? No, it's not, because we have clean, like carbon-free nuclear power providing all the power that we need, and you don't got to worry about stuff shutting down and brownouts and like polluting the earth and making it warmer. No, we just have stuff. We just have AC. We just have like comfort in abundance. That's the world that like libertarians want to live in. And all those people who are trying to ruin that for you, who tell you you need to be more miserable, you need to be like worse, your family needs to be uncomfortable. No, don't listen to those people.
Yeah. Like, don't listen to them at all. I agree with you. I want to live in a world where unions aren't protecting us from advances in robotics, that literally those are the things that can bring us this artistic world where people get to do things and create for each other. Like there is a future that's could be achievable, could be beautiful, and we live in fear. We have gods of scarcity controlling our thoughts and getting us to hate each other over nothing. All of these things could be worked out over imposed artificial scarcity, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah. All right. On that note, we have to end the WYSL show. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Have a great night. Take care.
Yeah, I saw that one. I was like, yeah, that's a good one.
Did Kev get a baboon heart because he's an animal tonight?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's beautiful, man. So, and here's our buddy Joe pointing this out. The emails going out from National Grid telling you to limit your consumption. That shouldn't be a thing.
No. Like,
now, I will say that the concerns about the grid are absolutely astronomically real. We are not there yet. The upgrades to introduce alternative power at locations not designated to introduce power are millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? And so we're getting closer. We we regularly have to put in switches that will protect the grid from power being generated at times where the grid doesn't need that power. Like that turns off our free electric that we're generating. It's very annoying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a problem there.
I mean, that is one of the tough parts about solar specifically, which is, like it's very cool though, but you got the duck curve problem, right? You got the issue of like when power demand is at peak. Okay, can you provide all that power? When it's lowest, are you generating more power than you need? And with the grid, like, and it's magical how this works. Like I don't claim to fully understand it, but basically everything has to be generated on demand. That's how like an AC power system works. Like they have to anticipate when everyone's going to turn on their ACs and then generate enough power at that time in real time to make sure everyone can do that thing. Right? Like that's how like our power grid like works. And it's sort of distributed, when you have like, a regional grid or whatever, it can pull power from a whole bunch of different places so that like it doesn't put a bunch of stress on a particular power plant. It's not one power plant doing its thing. It's a connection of power plants doing their thing. But that's how it works. And again, solar is really cool. And that means, okay, you have a sunny day, great, bunch of power is coming in, use up that power, you slow down like your gas firing facilities, oil fired, coal, whatever. You can't really shut down wind, nuclear, and you rely on the solar while you got it. And then, okay, sun's no longer out, wind's no longer blowing. You need to fire up the other facilities to compensate for that, and and make sure everyone can get the power that they want.
So like things that could solve that, right? Like storage facilities that next level batteries could solve that. Now there are, so for example, one of our favorite guys that we talk about pretty regularly, Thomas Massey, there are ways to set up systems with DC power that you can have every amenity that you have in your house now provided by solar power. You have to be able to store some electric, but you can store right now in the current system, you can store that electric in a system of old car batteries. That system is a little iffy, but it can be done. We would like to see advancements there. But so like what Shelly's saying right now, in a power outage, the well pump still runs. They have DC pumps. Like I have a DC pump, water pump on my camper, right? It runs off the battery, runs off of, I'm sorry, I have an inverter in my battery, which also converts from DC to AC and from AC to DC. So that is a consistent performer. Electric motors run great on direct current. So there is this potential to do some converting of what we already have that exists and make everything a little bit smoother for everybody.
Yeah.
And make this more feasible. Like there's so many expenses though. Also, I alluded to it in the show, but like robotics is the wave of the future. If we want to keep AI busy so it doesn't kill us, let it build robots that will serve us. Like everybody gets a robot dog. You know what I mean?
Everyone gets a robot dog.
Everybody gets a robot dog. They don't all have to be police robot dogs. We can have our own robot dogs.
Yeah, no, they can. And I don't know what they'll be able to do. I was watching a thing about like, it's strangely very complicated to do something as simple as like put away dishes, right? Like we don't think about it, but programming a robot to think about all the actions necessary to put away dishes is very tough.
Yeah. I was arguing. Yeah, I was arguing with my kid about it because he's like, "Well, I don't want robot advancement," and I'm like, first of all, they can't do everything that we can do, and he was like, "Well, couldn't they snipe us from 5 miles away?" And I'm like, "Well, that's drone technology, and I think that there's ways to beat that too if we put our minds to it." So
the stuff happening in Ukraine and Russia on that is nuts.
yeah, it's bonkers, but there's ways to defeat these things, but that's not the point. There's ways to advance comfort in society through embracing technology. And I for one am looking forward to a self-driving car and a flying self-driving car. That's really
flying
what
self-driving car.
Yeah.
He says, "I want Rosie the robot from Jetsons."
I'm pretty sure Elon Musk, I tried to find the article ahead of the show, but Elon Musk said, listen, within the next 10 years, you're all going to buy a robot. Trust me, the advancement in robots is coming. Robotics is here.
I mean, listen, even though I currently have a broken robot vacuum that I did name Rosie, actually.
Nice.
But it doesn't work right now. It's not charging for some reason. I need to figure out why. Just it went back to its station and it's just like, nope. I'm not connected to anything. I'm like, wow, what the hell?
I too, Kevin, have a robot vacuum, and I gotta say the thing's kind of like a moron. Like I could easily defeat that if it decided to attack me. Like I'm not even worried about it.
Not worried about that. But in my mind, like it keeps going over vents and be like, I've fallen off a cliff. I'm like, no, you haven't. Just get back on the carpet.
You can throw a 3/4 inch pipe on the ground and defeat Rosie the robot vacuum, or I called mine Billy. I don't know why, but it's very easily defeated. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, so I would also be excited if I could get a robot to do dishes. Great. It's just that like as you've started to think about it, like again, you and I, we don't think about it. Like even like older kids, they don't think about it. But like a robot's like, okay, you gotta take this dish. You gotta know whether or not to scrape food off the dish. You've got to, like even like loading it into a dishwasher. Okay, like where does it go in the dishwasher? Like how do you arrange this in the dishwasher so it can be as like efficient as possible? Those are all things you have to teach the robot. Then unloading the dishwasher. Where does everything go? That's unique to every different household. Like, can you teach a robot to unload the dishwasher? Maybe.
Correct.
Eventually, we'll get there, but
yeah, you could spend so much time teaching a robot to do some of those menial tasks that it would become too expensive. You could just do them yourself that much faster. But there are things like honestly, I want a real robotic lawnmower because I think that would be easy enough to program, even if it didn't get.
They got those.
That they don't. I've looked. They're like $10,000. They have.
They're expensive, but
they have all these prototypes that they want you to invest in, but to an actual production model of
go look at like Nate Petrosky's like TikTok. I've talked about he's a guy. He has all the solar panels too. He's the homesteader.
Okay,
like he has 2 robot lawnmowers that he seems to be pretty happy with now.
All right.
Yeah,
I like that.
Like it's a thing. And actually, Andrew Hollister also had a robot lawnmower. I have no idea if he still has one, but at one point in time, he had a robot lawnmower. It's like a lawn mowing Roomba type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're totally a thing. Like again, they work basically on the same principle that Roomba does. Like it's just gonna like kind of like bop around, like
that
until
works.
it like hits the whole yard. But
but
they're not like smart. And if you have stuff in your lawn, like in the same way your robot vacuum is going to get tripped up, so is this thing. So
Jean's saying that she's seen them out on her school bus route. That's cool.
And train your kids to do chores.
And he said LOL because he knows in this day and age that I think it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it's Brian on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, like eventually, like right now I'm at the stage where like my toddler is very excited to start doing a chore, but is not very diligent about completing it.
No,
like, yeah, daddy, I want to sweep up with you. Like, okay, cool, buddy. And he'll like sweep stuff like randomly, and I'm like, okay, we got to sweep it to the thing. It's like, nope, we're all done. Oh no, buddy, like you're not close.
But he's done.
Yeah. We got to sweep it to a dustpan now. Come on, bud. Oh, you put it away, and good job putting it away at least. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Which of those comments you flashed a bunch on the screen?
I know.
Tim. Which should we get to?
All right, let's go with Legacy Zach's first one. I had it up, and then that goes. Legacy Zach out there in YouTube land says government must hold the monopoly on nuclear energy because war is profitable. I do think that the gods of scarcity appreciate war, and I think that that's a problem. They don't want an abundance of energy because then they barely have any reason to make us fight, right? If everybody has everything they need, why would we fight them? I'm down with that comment. I'm down with it.
Maybe. I don't know. That's it. I always chalk things up to like straight like fear and incompetence in this case, especially around nuclear power. Like I don't think it's like a conspiracy to like hold us down, to like keep things keep us poor so we'll fight for something. I think it's like we're so scared that something could happen that we're going to like halt all progress so we can't have nice things at all, because like they want to make a totally risk averse society,
and yet we'll never have a completely risk averse society. And I don't know that explains some of what I would call the idiocy and the arguing and the manipulations that I see. I do think that there is a love of power or a lust for power that seems to provide a more rational explanation for some of the behaviors that I see. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, like in some cases you're not wrong. I have thought about it. Like I just think, so my philosophy on government is a lot of times like I take people at face value, and like with nuclear energy, I see like people are just scared. They're just scared something bad's going to happen, and they want government to protect them. Government, do something about this, and the government did, and now it's cost us quite a bit.
Yeah, that's fair, because you see it from both sides of the aisle. This demand for safety, this demand for the government is here to provide us with safety, but then when I see the government implement that, I'm like, that doesn't really answer the demand for safety. No one's more safe, and now we're just angry at each other, and I'm conflicted. Like it's a tough conversation to have, because I want to buy into the inherent goodness of the human being, but I do know that there are people that lust for power and will do anything to achieve, to be in that position, that awkward position of being like, well, you can't have this because you can't have a gun because it makes your neighbor uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like they want to be the one saying that. And I don't know what the answer is.
There's definitely all sorts of folks who like they like exercising power. It's a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like it's and I won't deny that. It's just like the there's a motivation for how these things get passed, and how like politicians, the narrative that they tell themselves about what they're doing, because a lot of politicians, I think, would like to think that they are the good guy in their own story, that they're just doing this like, yeah, sure, like sometimes I'm hurting people and sometimes like I'm restricting people's liberty, but like we have to do it for the greater good, right? Like I think a lot of people think in utilitarian ways, and can justify to themselves, maybe after the fact, but justify to themselves like just about any action on, well, we have to do this for the greater good, even if they personally happen to benefit from it. Like, yes, I'm benefiting from this like quite a bit. I'm making some money off of this, but also like it's for the greater good. And if I happen to make a little grift off of it, then that's fine too.
So I would put the goal is for them to make that grift. And how do they sell that grift? Because there's no explanation for me like that accepts the issues of identity politics that we have going on in this country right now, there's this constant demonization from both sides about every single thing the other side is doing. So they've narrowly offered us parameters of what we're supposed to argue over. And I'm stealing this concept from Noam Chomsky, but I'm sure he stole it from somebody else, where they're defining what we're arguing over so that they effectively can accumulate power and money for themselves. And that is where we don't have an effective answer. No one does. And I wish I wish that we did have an answer. I wish that me and you were pervasively popular and people would listen to the things that we say, because we take that on. You take it on with, and you still give human beings the benefit of the doubt more than I do, but we're taking it on every day. And so how do we get there, man? Like, that's always the question. How do we get there where people are listening to what we're saying more than they do? Which is great, because people are listening. It's just not fast enough, not strong enough, and you know, they're not going to vote for us.
Yeah. Oh, no. Hey, I put in my Twitter bio. I got 5,000 votes once.
Nice.
Let's ignore the fact that it was like 1.5% of the vote, but
5,000 is a big number. Queeter got like 12,000, 9,000, somewhere 9 to 12,000 votes. That's actually a pretty big deal. Larry Sharp, 90,000, 95,000 votes. Like, it could in fact work, but yet it doesn't quite.
Not quite.
We don't understand the principles of populism, and we don't know how to stay on message. I think we try to pull people to us by meeting them on issues where they're at, but those issues aren't really what they should care about. That sounds so selfish, right? Like, it's like,
I mean, like, winning politics, in like the reason why like some Democrats and Republicans wins, like you speak to people where they're at, right? And I think there's a value to libertarians saying like, okay, I need to frame this in a way that you are going to understand it, so that you are motivated enough to show up and vote for me, because like this helps you or your neighbors or your community in some way, right? So that's an important part of it. So like, I have no problem with people framing things in a way that's going to be attractive to other voters. It's a bit different than saying like, I'm gonna, moderate my positions or take wholly different positions in order to try to attract voters. But framing is good. And the good libertarian candidates do that. So a couple more comments here I want to get to. Like Zach says, your neighbor's feelings don't trump your rights. That's true.
I love that comment. Now,
that's a great comment.
So it is a great comment, but and in that comment is a grain. If we could find the best way to say that where everyone feels affirmed by that, like I have two neighbors, and I don't like talking about it because they may see the show sometime, but like, one is a big huge Biden fan, one is a big huge Trump fan, and they're very similar, but they don't like each other. But for both of them, this statement is true. So your feelings about this guy don't trump his rights, and his feelings about you don't trump your rights. There's no reason for you guys to end up angry with each other. Just accept the fact that look, if shit breaks down, you guys are on the same side. We're all going to be like hunting deer and cooking stuff together and learning how to store food and harvesting ice from our lake. Okay, like, that's what's gonna happen if shit breaks. So that's what we should focus on right now. We can have different feelings, we can have different religions, we can have different opinions, but this could work for everyone. But we got to find that cute, catchy, warm, fuzzy way of saying it.
Yeah, right.
Like salesmanship, propagandize this. This should be the propaganda that wins it all.
We haven't fully cracked that code yet.
Yeah, we haven't, but we keep trying, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. So Brian's saying that the Washington Gun Show YouTube channel has a video about some new gun law in New York. Know anything about it? I don't yet. We'll check it out. So we're gonna do some New York State issues next week.
Yeah, we were actually gonna do a little bit about it, like the crackdown on local marijuana dispensaries that was funded with the budget.
They raided one in my neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a libertarian I told you so, where we were saying this law is trash. What they're going to do is punish people who don't precisely follow the law and fund the state's coffers. And that's what they're doing. Like, that's literally what they're doing. Again, I'll go back to my friend who had a USDA license to grow marijuana products, got his entire crop stolen from him by force of law through illegal chicanery. After the New York State law was passed, and he didn't get the right permits in New York State. He had been doing this for years, making an extra 20 grand a year. And that is no longer a part of his business plan.
Yeah.
Actually, I got to go check him out because he may have gotten it straightened out, but still, it was
Okay.
still awful what they did. They came in and harvested. They took his whole crop that he worked all summer for, that he tended, that he harvested, that he separated. They took it all. All this work.
Ridiculous. And even if you do all that right, then a lot of people couldn't sell it.
Yeah, it's
ridiculous.
The weirdest thing. It's still like everybody. I'm not saying another word, Kevin.
Yeah,
that's it.
I'm
quiet about it. Just saying, there's weed available out there.
Yeah, somewhere out there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, I think we're gonna call it a night. Send us. We're gonna talk New York State stuff next week. Anything in particular you want to talk about? The relatively recent budget stuff, gun laws, whatever. Send us a message, and we'll try to get to some of that stuff. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Have a good night, folks.